said tomorrow. Don't let your dreams be dreams.
Who's ever down there? I'm gonna lock you in now!
Do it!
Ah! Help! Andrea! Help!
She can't love you. She can't love you like I do.
See? It's standing right behind you.
All for himself is the WWE Champion Randy Orton. Yes, he is ruthless, but he is so talented. Another RKO by Orton.
We have to get out of here.
That's not gonna help.
This thing has latched itself to your family.
RKO!
Father, we never seen nothing like this.
Randy Orton is RKO!
No way. I can't lose you.
Do you want to see him?
Yeah?
When the music stops, you see him in the mirror standing behind you.
Nothing is impossible. Don't let them see me like this. A man is under surveillance. Where's he going?
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's embarrassed of them all? So, I am your horror host Inkarnate, giving you my reaction video to having seen The Conjuring Last Rites. One thing that I mentioned in my preview video, my Conjuring Last Rites precaution, I distinctly remember that the daughter, Judy Warren, I had to ask the question, how many times has this character been played by somebody else? So the first in the original trilogy, she was played by Sterling Jarens, and she was probably given like 2 or 3 lines at most. In Annabelle's Slumber Party, the Annabelle Comes Home movie, she was played by McKenna Grace, and then in this movie she's being played by Mia Tomlinson. I only bring that up just to show you, like, this franchise is really desperate, which is why they're even including her in it. It reminded me of the Halloween Ends third film in the new Halloween trilogy, where they show you this guy who was babysitting a little kid, and apparently this had happened within the timeline of the first 2 movies of Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills. And yet this was such an integral character that there was no setup to him. The third movie is what introduced him, despite the fact that he was in Haddonfield the entire time. I only mention that because it's like they only introduce these characters out of sheer desperation because they have like nothing else going on. And look, I am absolutely not against, in a long running series, introducing new characters. No, that is essential, and I will always champion that. I mean, geez, by the 4th Chucky movie is where we got Tiffany. You know what I mean? It's just that they have to be good characters, and generally speaking, if you're gonna introduce a character, think about the movies that I just mentioned. This character was seen 4 other times before this film. Anyway, let's get to the film proper. So, Last Rites opens on a rather quizzical note. Now look, I understand, and it would make sense for the Warrens to have some understanding of the peril involved in their profession. The film opens on like their first case ghost busting, and I don't want to spoil anything, but you see how vulnerable one of them is. And that just begs the question, why would you put your family in that type of danger when you're attempting to start a family? I'll just say that. Now, once we catch up to the modern times, or modern for the Warrens, where they're at, they have long since given up doing any type of exorcisms. They now do occult lectures, and oh man, a franchise is on the decline when they have to start doing self-deprecating humor and self-parody, and they need to resort to pop culture references. And at the beginning, they have back-to-back pop culture references, and I'm just like, and then they reveal that the lecture hall that they're in is basically empty, and the mockery that the Warrens endure, I feel, is a reflection of the fan reaction to the franchise as a whole. I found it strange that, because obviously this film reverted back to the formula of the first two. I mentioned in my preview video, in my precaution of The Conjuring Last Rites, that the third movie had a real chance with a courtroom drama attempting to demonstrate that the findings that the Warrens had done on occult investigations could actually help with someone who was possessed that had committed a murder. That was at least an attempt to shake up the formula. This one is back to what's formulaic. And I found it strange that it took almost an hour and a half to get to the house. And like, that would have been okay if if the build up to that, 80 minutes was interesting. It wasn't. And oh man, they have two literal back-to-back ripoffs of other movies. Now look, it's bad enough when directors and filmmakers believe that they can get away with ripping off scenes of lesser well-known films. For instance, it's astonishing to me. Not only that, Paul W.S. Anderson did the whole laser cutting hallway scene. It's astonishing to me that not only has no one ever acknowledged that is a direct ripoff of the film Cube, but Paul W.S. Anderson continued to regurgitate that same scene, thinking, oh, well, gee, if I repeat it, it's going to be iconic. But he went on to rip off the same scene in AVP. Now, let's get to The Conjuring. There's a scene towards the end of the Nun film, the first Nun movie, where one of the characters, I think it's the French character, I think his name was Frenchie. He's walking through a clutch of zombified nuns, all with their faces covered. I'm just like, bruh. That is a direct ripoff of Silent Hill, when the leading lady needs to walk through a bunch of nurses that are like twitching all around her. But anyway, back to Last Rites. They rip off a scene from The Omen, and then the very next scene, horror scene that they rip off is the blood flood from The Shining. I'm like, dude, you do realize that people can, and don't call it an homage, please. Like, don't even. Why do they feel the need to do that? Why do you think that people aren't going to see these scenes from these popular films and immediately recognize the movies that they're from? I don't get it. They did that with The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, where the priest arrives on the scene, and mind you, that's one of the opening scenes to that movie. They have this whole, mist, a priest arriving at a house while there's a fog. It's like, dude, really? Be your own movie. Don't rip off The Exorcist, because people will just be reminded that that's a good movie and The Conjuring 3 wasn't. Anyway, the house. So one of the characters goes there, leading to the other characters going after them. They proceed to say, I don't know why I'm here. Now, you might be thinking that she like slept walk there. No, she didn't. She willingly drove there just to explain her own ignorance as to what drove her to go to that specific house, as though she would even have the address. You know what I mean? It's like, boy, way to rob your second lead of any agency whatsoever. It's always a great sign when characters are driven by the plot instead of the other way around. Not to mention how this is done in contrived ways. Like, great character motivation. So, another cringy part of the movie is their rather lame use of humor. It isn't often mercifully, but I don't want to say it's Marvel levels of bad where it feels like it was forced, because it doesn't happen often, but when it does, and it's very few and far between, thank Christ, but it's just like, movie, no. And look, I'm not against levity. There were parts of the original Conjuring that were actually really funny. But it's just, if you don't need it, just don't go there. And especially, not just not needing it, especially when you're not funny. I will give this movie this. Let it never be said that I do not give credit where it's not deserved. It, at least, this movie, attempts character development. Even though, admittedly, it does come at the expense of Ed Warren, which is puzzling. I mean, he gets shut down by his wife no less than 3 times. I'm sitting there counting it, and all within like the first half hour of the movie. And it's always with that like nasally nagging tone. Oh, Ed. The movie mocks his health and his age, which is pretty funny since Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are the same age. And I hate to break it to you, it's clear which one looks older, and it ain't Pat. And in real life, Ed and Lorraine Warren were only a year apart, so whoops. But never you mind that, right, feminists? Lorraine Warren pretty much hogs all the screen time with her daughter, Judy, and they're the ones that actually get to bond. The father tells the boyfriend how he feels about his daughter and how important she is to them instead of showing the audience. Like, seriously, Ed Warren has like no screen time to speak of with his daughter Judy. It's very, very strange choices. The scenes between mother and daughter, as well as father and son-in-law, were legitimately heartfelt. I'm just like, okay, they're trying. My God. And that has been a weakness of all of the Conjuring movies. I would have to say, like, they don't really have many characters to invest in, which is always strange because they always opt for like setups where there's a house full of kids. And I commend the movie for attempting to make us care about these characters. I will always champion that because, and in this movie, I commend the attempt at bonding and character building, because this movie ain't got much more going for it. And if you're thinking that I'm too much into that I'm reaching as far as the blatant favoritism that the film has for Lorraine, at one point they not only have Ed cooking breakfast, he's doing it with an apron on. And why, again, I commend the movie for having scenes of bonding between mother and daughter, but Jesus, they do they go a little bit overboard where the two have almost like a psychic telepathic bond between them, where it's like, okay, a bit much, and that's never been revealed to be a thing between them before, but okay, movie, whatever. I found it strange that the movie couldn't seem to make up its mind on who the villain was. They had these references to villain characters of the past, which I thought was pretty unnecessary, especially when you take into account Annabelle Comes Home. So, and believe me, no one wants to watch that movie. I doubt that they even wanted to make it. They just were forced to out of compulsion for a franchise or the alleged popularity with this doll. But yeah, and then they go into, well, I'll get into it a little bit later, but like the setup or the hierarchy between the villains, I thought was also strange. The MacGuffin villain is almost like an afterthought. As I stated in my precaution preview video, I suspected that because it was something that the Warrens dealt with in their past that they believed that would add dramatic weight to the threat. It doesn't. It's something that's never been mentioned in their past, and just because something happened long ago and isn't given, it's not given a personification, it's not given any type, this object that they're dealing with, it's not given any kind of, what's the word that I'm looking for? It's not given really a threat level. It's just that, hey, this thing existed once upon a time. It's back now. That's it. And that's not enough for the audience to treat it like it's a source of peril. You know what I mean? And honestly, they, with the exception of the look of Annabelle, that's always been the problem with that doll as well. There are very cheap, almost amateur hour scares and predictable horror scenes, like to the point that I'm sitting there saying to myself, "Oh, that's a setup for later. Oh, this is gonna They're pretending like this is just an innocuous thing, but we'll see it come back in a creepy fashion." And there's a Grand Canyon-sized difference between setup and payoff versus a scare that the audience can see coming a mile away. And speaking of that, man, this movie is action-packed with stereotypes. It's wild to me. Like, it just can't get enough of them. I can't tell you how many times, I lost count of how many times they have that cliched rising tension of the movie. The music is just blaring in your ear. And either it's a jump scare or nothing happens, or nothing happens plus jump scare. It's like, dude, stop doing that. Like, my ears can only get enough of the French fart horns. Oh, man. If Lorraine or her daughter sees something out of the ordinary or hears something that ain't quite right, why in hell would you not tell your husband or father? Why would you do that? And this is like in The Conjuring 2, where she didn't just spit it out over, Lorraine didn't just spit it out over what it was she was seeing, the visions, whatever. And she was being all cryptic about it. It's like, dude, aren't you and your husband paranormal investigators? Like, that's a bad horror cliche in movies in general, where a character starts keeping secrets to themselves. But again, these are occult investigators. You can't just chalk it up to the mind playing tricks on you, or you're just seeing things. Sorry, that doesn't work. Not by the fourth case or fourth film with Warren cases. It doesn't work that way. And mind you, this is like the fifth time that these two have been on screen, because you have to include Annabelle Comes Home. And that again, you have characters that are just walking around what they know to be a haunted house alone. Like, don't they know any better at this point? One would think, because it's like, bro, what are you doing? You hear a creepy voice, you think you see something. Oh, I'll just go investigate by my lonesome. Yeah. Another thing I noticed, my God, every mainline Conjuring movie always needs to take place in a basement. That, or underground. It's just like, is that written into the contract of these movies? Like, really, every single time there's something spooky in the basement. Or maybe they're trying to recreate the thrills of the first Conjuring movie, I don't know. Oh man, the dollhouse. And I don't mean that there's actually a dollhouse in the film. I'm talking about how they need to pound it over your skull using dolls over how, oh man, this scene is creepy because inanimate objects that have that have the effect of messing with your mind because they look like humans but they're not. Uncanny Valley. It's just like, and if that's not bad enough, I'm not spoiling anything because frankly the trailer's spoiled with an Annabelle cameo. It's, dude, we get it. Creepy dolls, they like within the first 45 minutes, there's no less than 3 separate types of dolls that you see. One, the opening scene is a room full of them. It's just the trailers spoil that there's a baby doll that there's a scare with in the film. Oh man, and if that's not bad enough, they have to revert back to music toys playing creepy music, either on their own or they start playing just by themselves. It's like, dude, enough, man. We get it. Like the pounding over people's skulls, not necessary. I know, crazy as it might sound. By the end, the music got to such blaring, oppressive degrees. I'm just like, I'm begging for someone to just tone the music down. Like we get it. It's the ending. They want to go for, a big climax, but it takes away from the experience because it's distracting almost. And that being the case, I've always known this, but they kind of do the same thing in this film because they don't know how to wrap things up. The Conjuring movies, the mainline ones, and to be honest, the other ones as well, the other spin-offs, they have these nonsensical, bombastic resolutions. The first film ended with what I call the hand of fate, being touched by an angel. Lorraine Warren just puts her hand on the woman who's being possessed. Like, really? That's all it takes? You just put your hand on someone who's possessed and the movie's over? Okay. And then in part 2, they got rid of the threat by Lorraine having Rumpelstiltskin the nun. She just said her name out loud and, movie over. I don't remember what the finale was of the third film. It was that forgettable, and I'm sure no less contrived. The weak plot in Last Rites almost necessitated exposition. By the time the Warrens, deferred to that, the exposition in the movie, I much preferred that to anything going on with the A-plot. And I think that this is a failing of all of the Conjuring movies because there isn't much story progression, and that includes the first film. The first Conjuring was a classic, I believe, largely because of the great tension-filled, nail-biting suspense and genuinely frightening scenes. The story, though, is pretty bare bones, and like I said before, characterization was lacking. You don't get to know the family of the first one. It's pretty much the Ed and Lorraine show, which I get, but that became a problem in subsequent sequels and spin-offs, and certainly here. And again, I felt that, and I still do, feel that the inclusion of the daughter was just out of desperation. They want to spice up the formula somehow. Now, it wasn't as bad or shallow as I thought it would be because they make the daughter doesn't stand out too much. She's just a sweet girl who very family oriented. So she's not like a girl boss or anything like that, or she's not like berating her father. But still, it was commendable. But there isn't much of an arc there. You know what I mean? She doesn't learn anything. There's very little in terms of character growth or you know what I mean? And you certainly don't really get to know the family again. So Yeah, story and character have always been very lacking for these films, which is unfortunate, but that's what happens when there are flaws with either the first or the best films in a franchise. There's no compulsion to change up the formula or improve upon it. This movie felt like a return to form, and I don't mean that in a good way. It felt like a rehash of part 2. Specifically, what I mentioned before, the exposition scene and the hierarchy with the level of threats here. What I mean is that there's this malevolent spirit that's using ghosts, and they did that with the nun. The nun was a malevolent force, right? And it's using the cloak. It itself is a spiritual menace, and it's using the cloak of a nun as like a mockery of religion. Okay, but then it takes the visage of the crooked man, and it's manipulating the ghost of an elderly man that died in that house. This is what I mean. It's like usually the exposition feels just like that. Whereas it's strange, like, why is it that you can't explain what it is that's going... why can't you explain what's going on by weaving it into the story? Like breadcrumbs here and there, a mystery to solve, you know what I mean? And B, why is that necessary? Like, why is it that you can't just have a single solitary threat? You have to have a malevolent, inhuman force that's using ghosts. Why? Why is it that you can't just have the threat be one thing, you know? But in this movie, like I said, the buildup and the setup are so lackluster that by the time that they got to the exposition, I'm like, okay. But again, the exposition was more interesting, but they could have explained that in a manner that was less exposition heavy. And they did that in the first Conjuring movie, and I believe they did that in part 2. In another way that this fourth film is reminiscent of the Conjuring 2 is this is the second time that the Warrens have faced a threat from their past. Because the last time it was the nun, and if you've seen how the first Nun ends, you see how it circles right back to the Conjuring film. So there are several callbacks to other sequel characters by the end that, like, no one would recognize. It's like, dude, seriously, why bother? It was whatever. The best that I can say about this movie is that it's the best of the worst. And by that, I mean, this is the best Conjuring movie that we've seen out of a very long string of bad ones that people don't want to admit were bad. Like, it's wild. People still regurgitate the same talking point of The Nun. Oh, it's the highest grossing Conjuring movie. Like, dude, first off, who cares? Who cares? Like, seriously. Let the studios worry about that. Does it strike anyone as odd that you're not compelled in the slightest by the origin of The Nun? You can't name any interesting characters because Vera Farmiga's dorky sister, no one cares about. And you can't name any scenes. Anyone find that odd, like, at all? The constant talking point is how it's the highest grossing. Okay. Are people going to replay the first Nun movie because it's that? Are they going to rewatch it or talk about it? Or is it ever going to reach iconic status because of the intricate story, because of the scares, because of the scenes, because of the moments? No one cares that it's the highest grossing. And it's only the highest grossing because of the foreign market. But in terms of this film's standing in comparison to other more recent Conjuring films, I mean, like I said in my precaution, the same director as this was the same director as La Llorona 2019, the same director as, what is it, the Conjuring 3 2021, the same director as 2023's The Nun 2. He's the same director as this film. All those other movies were terrible, and those are the recent ones that we've gotten. So this movie, despite everything that I've said about this, it lies somewhere between like a mid recommendation, and save it for streaming. That's the best that I can say about it. It's watchable. It's adequate. It's not bad, but that doesn't make it great. You know what I mean? So it's better than I thought it would be. I will give it credit for the attempt at characterization, slowing things down so it's not like breakneck speed. It does suffer from jump scare city, and it loses a lot of the tension that I feel like this director, Michael Chavez, is just trying to desperately emulate the style of James Wan without bringing anything to the table himself. Like I remember distinctly watching the film, wondering, okay, this scene or this setup or this malevolent spirit, this particular situation that whatever character finds themselves in, what can they do with this scene? How can they do something different? How can they... And keep in mind that it's a malevolent force that you're dealing with, so its modus operandi is to torture characters, whether physically or mentally. So I'm sitting there saying to myself, okay, film, here's your chance, wow me. And again, it doesn't have to be jump scares, doesn't have to be blood and guts, no. What can you do with this scene to make it different, to make it stand out, to make this particular threat, because remember, they're trying to pipe this up like, oh, this is the last case of the Warrens, okay. And again, I'm not looking for anything bombastic, but I don't think it's a big ask for a franchise like this. All right, what do you got to show me? How is this different? How are you going to go out? What is going to be your lasting impression? And unfortunately, time after time with what it is that I was seeing, it was underwhelming. It was just, So, yeah, it's better than I thought it would be, but it's just not great. So, this, from what I've been told, this is the last time that we will see Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson playing these characters. I suppose I give them credit for, being good soldiers for this franchise and making 5 films, but now they want to bow out. And the studio wants to continue this because they think that the Conjuring series is a cash cow. Good luck with that. So, yeah, this is a recommendation on my part, but it's a middle of the road. Like, I'm not very enthusiastic about it. It's just adequate. But those are my thoughts. I would be curious to hear any one of yours. And if you haven't already, take a look at my precaution and see how close I was with my thoughts on this film and the overall Conjuring universe. I've been Inkarnate, reminding you, I ain't just a big deal, I'm the real deal. If you're resigned to your fate, time to subscribe to your fears.
Warn your friends. Warn everyone.